You know, when you lose something, what happens to you is you fall into this act of grief. There is nothing wrong with grieving. All of us in this class have to grieve. You have to grieve coming to class. You have a nice, warm, comfortable bed. You look outside, it's raining. And you say, damn it, I didn't want to get an F. Maybe I should just go to class. And you don't really consider it as grief, but it is. I mean, you're losing the comfort of your room to come to a lousy, ugly, smelly classroom. Okay. There is nothing wrong with being lonely if you have the tools to survive it. Now look, for many, many, many thousands of years, people lose people. They're sad, they're sorrowful, but they also know that there is this life that they have. They're not going to get depressed, and if they do, that depression is not going to lead to paralysis. They're not going to be medicated. The thing you need to understand is, what is it about today's culture where grief turns into depression, depression turns into paralysis, and ultimately society says you need to be medicated in some shape or form. It's not like this is the only generation that's going through loss and grief. It's been going on as long as human beings have been around. So if you have tools to wrestle with loneliness, fine. Now, if you have good friends and you're lonely, go out with them, buy them coffee, and talk to them about loneliness. That's gossip. But you need to be creative in language. And you need to have friends who are willing to sit with you for an hour and listen to you. If you don't have any friends, watch movies that speak about your grief. Watch sad movies. Movies where people have lost. They have grieved. If you don't have a YouTube channel, or you don't have internet, you don't have a DVD player, write poetry. If you don't have poetry, you're not that talented, write prose. If you don't have that, go buy some books. If you don't have that, go hiking in the woods. Because you realize when you go hiking in the forest that, you become so insignificant in nature. Go to the ocean. I mean, sure, the water can be very alluring where you want to swim. You say a little bit further, a little bit further. And by the time you get to the middle of the ocean, you realize, well, I guess this is a done deal. You just go down. That's it. But the point I'm trying to make, it's not a bad idea to go to places where the space is so powerful that you feel insignificant. And you say, well, yeah, I'm sad. I have a right to be sad. But people lose, people get sad, and that's it. If you don't have any of that stuff, get medicated. Nothing wrong with that. If you don't have any tools at all, if, for example, you come from a tradition where you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't distract yourself, you want to be mindful, but in you being mindful, you realize your back gets bent more and more and more and more, well, that's not the sort of loneliness you want to have, because it's not just going to end in loneliness. Because you need to understand that whenever you're lonely and you want to get yourself out, it's like a puzzle. I am sick, I want to get better. So what do? You look for answers. But answers are not readily available, so you become agitated, you become aggravated, you become frustrated, you become confused. There comes a point where the seed of aggravation turns into anger. Anger first takes the form of you attacking yourself, then you attacking other people. I mean, consider the mass shootings by these young people. For years they've been bullied or they've remained invisible, whatever the case may have been. They cut themselves, they lock themselves in a room, they're angry with their parents. There comes a point where they say, no, I'm just going to go out and take my anger on everybody, friend or foe. That's what happens. So if you don't have the tools to deal with loneliness, the only thing that's going to wait for you is anger. Now, anger can be good. Karl Marx was angry. He wrote. Jesus Christ was angry. He came up with the Beatitudes. Uh, let me just go back to why is it that people want to give advice. There is this line in Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Anger.
Yeah. It's like hating someone or hating something or hating myself. The first step to uncontrolled anger. But like if you don't have the hate, like towards people, so it doesn't mean that you're angry. Don't hate something. You need to hate something.
Can I tell you a story? I've shared the story before, but I'll share it again. I have a friend whose parents brought her here from Eritrea. They traveled through Sudan when it was in crisis. Eventually, they came here to America. At the age of 11 or 12 or 13, she decided to go to a different state, to go to a different school. Every time she looked at her parents, all these memories of Sudan and war and all those things came up, and she wanted a break. She went to the school, and she was, of course, African, black African, and she went to a predominantly white school. And so when the instructors became curious about who and what she is, she began to tell them about her stories. And then little by little, the instructors did something to her, which was, oh, your parents didn't love you. Oh, your parents were abusive to you. Oh, your parents this or your parents that. Now, you see, such narratives did not exist for her prior to her going to this particular place, Ohio or Idaho. But little by little, words as forms of advertisement began to go inside her. And the seeds, these words, began to blossom. And for the first time, words like depression, such as loneliness, such as hate, such as this, they all began to kind of blossom within her. And then she came to visit her parents. But she came with the concepts of hate and anger and lack of love and lack of care by her parents. And she has been angry and she has been medicated for the past 35 years. You know, anger is very natural. It's very natural. You have every right to be angry. You know, every adolescent, every time you get to be 15 or 16, you want to figure out why you are the way you are, why life is the way it is, why there is injustice. You happen to be somewhat sensitive. Why there are homeless people out there. Why is that? Why is it that about 40% of the people live on the poverty line? Why is that? Why is there racism? I mean, when you're a kid, you ask all these questions. And then you realize as you get older, there are no answers to these questions. And you become angry. I mean, you ask your father, no answer. You ask your mom, no answer. You go to a philosophy class and you ask, hey, my philosophy teacher, why is this that way? No answers that can satisfy you. You become angry. And there comes a point where you realize that you've been disappointed and you've been betrayed by so many different people, so many different branches in society, where anger now gives birth to hate. You hate everything that has been created. I mean, look, the Age of Enlightenment, 18th century, the birth of factories, the birth of cities, everything was made to make human life easier, better. Poverty went up. Homelessness went up. Sickness went up. Everything that was promised to be good turned out to be evil. You know, you're disappointed, then you become angry, and then you become hateful. Now, if you happen to live in a relatively civilized culture, you kind of just live with the hate and you move on. If you happen to live in a savage culture such as this, hate turns into violence. There is no revolution people coming together as a mass and revolting against an uncaring system. No. You revolt against your neighbor who's going through the same difficult issues as you are. You have to, yeah. I'm sorry about the question and all that. Take care. Thank you. هر کسی از ظن خود شد یار من و از درون من نجست اسرار من. He says his sister passed. You say, I never had parents. For example, هر کسی از ظن خود شد یار من. That people became my companion only in their assumptions. You know what that means? I assume that I know what it means to have someone very close to you pass. Why? Well, because I was writing my essay online today on my computer. All of a sudden, the power went out and I lost my essay. I lost my essay, so I'm in a grieving mode. You lost your sister, I lost my essay, let's sit and talk. So that's what people do, they assume. And what the answer is, no, don't assume that you know my pain. If you want to know what it means to not have healthy parents or to have lost a sister, you need to go a step further, which means what? Let's go and have coffee after class. But that means you have to look at me and you have to kind of like me first. Then when we go and have coffee, I need to create this vibe that you can trust me. And then little by little, as you talk, I just keep my mouth shut so you can talk more and more and more. But there is more. You see, emotions such as anger and hate, they have history. If you don't know what history means, it means the following. If you go to Montclair, Lucky's, and you happen to be African American, as you're walking the aisles, you just go like this all the time. Now, someone who's passing you by says, well, why do you keep looking here and there? And you just say, there is a history. History? What kind of history? Well, first, I'm black. Second, Montclair is white. Third, there is this image in our culture about what it means to be black. So the moment I step in, there's a stereotype. I have like this piece of advertisement, billboard above my head. It's like me, a Middle Easterner. The billboard above my head is, a thug is walking into Lucky's, beware. Okay? So, which means that before I can say anything about your parents or about your sister or anything in general, I need to get to know your history. And it's not just hearing the history, I need to understand the history. That is called empathy. I need to put my feet in your shoes. By the time I do all of that, then when I give you a piece of advice, then you will receive it. You know why? We have now become friends. Not friends in assumption, not friends in body. Friends in history, friends in understanding, friends in trust. But that takes a long time. Now, the truth is all of us in this class are broken in a variety of different ways. But none of us have time to take anyone out for coffee and to understand their history. All we have are these pathetic, infantile assumptions about where people have been, what they've gone through, and assuming that we understand them, now let me throw them a piece of advice. Doesn't work. But here's another thing that you should kind of be mindful of. You don't just sleep with another with your body. You sleep with them with your emotions, you sleep with them with your intellect, you sleep with them with your spirit. Now, if you happen to be just a casual sleeper, anyone who walks by, you'll just sleep with them. If on the other hand, you have some respect for your body, you say, no, I'm waiting to find the right companion, then sleep with them. Find the right ears. Because your words are going to lay inside them. And if they happen to be an unworthy receiver of your message, always go back to the saying in the New Testament. Do not give swines your treasures. Don't give your goods to pigs. But, so, where are you going? You're going to dump me? Where do you live? What's the address? I'm just kidding. Not dump them. Okay. Good luck with your stats.
Thank you. I need a lot of luck.
Yeah. Well, it's a Zoom class, right? Online?
Yeah.
You know what to do. It's online.
I drink a lot of coffee.
No. Cheating.
Do what you're doing I'm too smart.
Umbrella.
I lost a lot of umbrellas in my life.
That actually looks good. I should have kept my mouth shut. Just taking it myself.
When they're splint, it doesn't break.
Really?
Yeah.
Buy me one. I'll give you extra credit.
My dad gave it to me like 2 years ago. I don't know where he got it from.
Well, just give that to me.
You need it.
Just buy a cheap one for yourself.
I don't have money yet.
Ah,
I even have money for cheap ones.
completely useless. Listen, good luck with
It's my
Oh, come on, you guys. Good luck. Bye. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else before we go home? Yeah.
So, got people, that speak of soulmates and twin flames. Should I look at them and then open my mouth and say, Majnun?
Soulmates. They don't exist. I mean, just consider the words for a moment. Soul. What? You think you get a soul at the age of 19? I mean, you may have a soul. Do you express it often? No, you just have these infantile, pathetic, childish emotions that you mistake them for having a soul. All right, so you're inspired. So you write great poetry. You're just inspired, man. You ain't got a soul. You're just inspired. Mate. It's like you look at someone and you see your own reflection. Okay? Now, imagine that you're going out with someone and you're honest with them. Honey, I just want to be with you only for tonight. They look at you and say, how about 6 months? Instead of one night, how about 6 months? And you look at them, but you can't see your own reflection. In other words, your reflection, you say, I only want to be with you for tonight. Not 6 months, only for tonight. And because you can't see your own reflection in this other person, because their desires are different, you walk away. Unless you want to walk into this Fatal Attraction movie scene, where you think, oh, you can just leave them and they'll come, with their bulldog and whatever. A mate means that you look at someone and you see your own reflection. Now, the question is, what reflection do you usually see of yourself in another? Well, you see physical reflection, that you've been working out, you got 2-pack or 4-pack or 6-pack, and this other person, every time they see your ab, they say, oh my God, look at the 2-pack. Or maybe you just don't have a 2-pack, you just got no pack. you know, and they're just and they're just envious of your nopak, you know. Sometimes what happens is you raise your hand and you say, I just lost my dad. Okay. Now you look around and you say, okay, can I see the reflection of my own emotions inside anyone? Because if you can, that becomes your mate. After class, you say, can we go and have some coffee? I'll pay. And then you'll sit and you talk because you saw certain signs. Then you find someone who wants to find their own psychology, see a reflection of their own psyche. In other words, you suffered some trauma some years ago. You're not talking about just having an anger that comes and goes, an anger that's every aspect of your life, it leaks into it. And then you say, yeah, I've been hating my parents for the past 98 years. And then someone over there says, oh yeah, I've been hating them for like 100 years. You say, oh, well, there's my mate. Then you guys go out and you talk like all this hateful stuff about your parents for the next 5 hours. Okay. And then there comes a point where you say, I'm interested in Hegel, the great German philosopher. Anyone in this class has read his book? So all of a sudden, 2 hands go up. Well, you guys want to like have a group after class? We can go to Amir's office and have a philosophical group and talk about Hegel. Sometimes you say, I read the New Testament, for example, and these verses from the New Testament moved me deeply, that nothing down here can ever make me happy. I have money, I have a companion, I have a house, but I'm just not happy. And I'm thinking about walking away from everything, walking into the desert. And what you're saying is now, your poverty now is one of spiritual. And then you raise your hand and you say it, and someone in the back says, yeah, I feel the same way. And you go over there and you talk to them. The point I'm trying to make is this. You want to find your own reflection when you're around people. But the question is, what is your value? Where exactly are you? At the age of 20, you ain't got no spirit, man. You're a bundle of confusion because you want to figure out what you want to study. You know, when you're going to get married, if at all you ever will be married. In this day and age, if you're a man or a woman, if you're hetero, homo, between, above, below, left, right, you have all sorts of things to consider. You know? And the idea of saying, I have a soul, I'm going to find myself. No. Find someone who's as confused as you are. You know, go out with them. Create this false narrative called love. Hang out with one another, write poems for each other, buy each other flowers, walk the cemetery. You know, find a tombstone that can house the both of you. And then after like 4 or 5 months, look at you come and say, yeah, you know, I thought I love you, but no, you're no good for me. You know, a soulmate. Come on. No soulmates. The other thing you need to understand is if you really want to like someone, it really just takes time. You're an animal. Look at someone. If you find them attractive, go out with them, date them for about 2 months, then ask them if they got parents. If they say yes, go to their parents and say, Mr. Jack, I have found Jacqueline very attractive. Can you ask your wife Josephine if she's okay with me, Jamal, all J's? You know, get married, suffer for 20 years until she just grows on you like a leech. And then despite the fact that you have been disgusted, repulsed by her for 20 years, all of a sudden you wake up, oh my God, I can't live without this evil woman. And she goes to Safeway, you call her, where are you? I miss you. It just took you 20 years. That is a soulmate. I don't know what mate it is, but it's something. Yeah. Am I sorry? Do I like the rain? Do I have a raincoat? Well, how bad is the rain? Is it cold? Is it windy? Am I walking alone? Or am I walking with someone unattractive?
Okay. Walking with the person that you got a crush on, like
Second grade?
Yeah, like that second grade crush. She really would still remember though. And like, so you have ran into them at the lake, and then they started talking to you. So now you're walking in the rain with them, but at this point they have become ugly.
Yes. Ugly, yes.
And they have such a nice personality.
Ugly but nice personality.
Lovely personality.
Yes. Well, it reminds me of a movie that Ricky Lake played many, many, many years ago. Ricky Lake, of course, was portrayed in this movie to be very, very, very unattractive. In today's lingo, you would call her ugly. Or maybe not the best looking people on the planet. So she was on this plane with all these athletes, cheerleaders, and good-looking guys, and the plane lands in the snow, crashes in the snow. Everybody dies, or maybe they just get lost. And so she happened to be paired with this very, very, very good-looking guy who had a very, very good-looking girlfriend. And he's not attracted to her at all. But, they got to fish together, and they got to walk together and talk together. And little by little, this unattractive, i.e. ugly-looking woman grows on him. And of course, he's attractive, so naturally, she looks at him and she says, "Oh, I found my soulmate." And so 2 hours in the movie, people find each other and they're rescued. This good-looking man finds his good-looking girlfriend and they hang out. And as they go out and he listens to her, he comes to realize how vain she is. She's just stupid. And she can't but think about Ricky Lake, the ugly woman. And of course, Ricky Lake is very, very hurt by what he had done. Once they were rescued, he ran to his girlfriend, completely betrayed her, and she sat there sobbing because she had lost her soulmate. And after 2-3 months, he goes and knocks on Ricky Lake's door, and this ugly-looking woman opens the door and says, "What you want?" And this man says, "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" "I love you." "You love me?" "I love you. It just took me a few months to realize I love you." Of course, he gets invited in. The door is shut. It's about midnight. The rest is your imagination. Let me kind of just answer your question in this way, and then we'll go home. There are two people, one, and I'm using this story, it comes from the Sufi tradition, from the Islamic tradition. One is temperamentally happy or temperamentally positive. The other is temperamentally sad or sorrowful or negative. One morning, the positive guy goes to the negative guy and says, "Let us switch our temperaments just for this night. I am always happy, will be sad. You who are always sad, you'll be happy." It's a nice experiment. They say, okay. So the guy who was always sad is now happy, and the guy who is always happy is now sad. The guy who was happy but now sad begins to write poetry, begins to pray, begins to cry. He feels alive. Sadness brings him to life in a very strange way. The guy who was sad but now happy becomes forgetful, becomes oblivious to pain. He has no empathy, no sympathy. Mourning appears. The sad guy who is now happy looks at the happy guy who is now sad and says, "I want my emotions back. In happiness, I forget. In happiness, I become callous. In happiness, I become indifferent. I lack empathy and sympathy and compassion. I want my sadness back because in sadness, I have longing. In sadness, I have feelings. In sadness, I become alive." And the guy who is usually happy but now sad pleads with him, "Let me have your sorrow for just another day." And he says, "No. Now the question is, are you walking in the rain during moments where you're sad and reflective and feel alive, sad but alive? Or are you walking in rain which makes you happy and forgetful, and you become a solipsist, that there is no one on this planet except you and nothing but happiness exists? There are lots of things to consider. صد فصل بهار آید و بیرون ننهم گام ترسم که بیایی تو در خانه نباشم.